If this is the solution, then what's the problem? Well, the problem is I've just got too many miniatures and I don't paint them. I buy a box, paint one or two, and then put it aside to never be touched again. Hey, it's a good dust collector. But in truth, I just don't need any more miniatures. So I bought Leviathan. Of course I did. It's a nice shiny new box. Look at this plastic, smells beautiful, all this potential, all these miniatures. About 72 and yep, I probably won't paint most of them. Unless of course, I come up with a plan. I know, right? Everybody has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. But the truth is, I need one. Because I don't need any more miniatures. So, this is a plan. Let's put these miniatures to use. Let's use them all. Over the next few months, few years, few millenniums. Who knows? But let's paint them all. Let's put them in dioramas. Let's make videos on them. Tutorials, how to paint them. God knows. Let's see what happens. As my 5th ex-wife once said to me, let's start small. Let's pick a few of these miniatures, paint them up, and put them in a diorama. Let's say 4, 5, 6 Tyranids and, hey, maybe a couple of Space Marines. I'm going to need some wood, and I find the best place for wood is, well, the woods. I'm lucky enough to live by a forest, and within this forest there's a few trees that have fallen down and, hey, nothing to do with me, but it's the bottom of these trees, the roots, that make great trees. I'll pick a select few, cut them up, and take my haul back to the studio. With a couple of the roots dried out, we can now attach these to the base. We use a bit of PVA, a bit of dirt from the garden, and cover them up. My plan here is to have some water running around the base, a sort of moat, just none of the past, more like 40,000 years in the future. A grim dark future, that is. Some final details on the base, and also cover all that filler up. Well, I can't put it off any longer. It's time to start snipping and assembling these miniatures. I've settled on 2 Marines, both with 2 completely different poses, and 5 mids. I'm sure I read somewhere that everything should be done in odd numbers. I mean, it's more aesthetically pleasing or something. Well, the models are ready, the base is ready, I'm ready, let's prime all this up. Here we go, let's paint some miniatures. Being the Leviathan box, I'm going to stick to their colour theme. So purples and bone. Using contrast washes here, a brown for the skin, flesh and bony bits, I don't know, whatever they are. And a contrast purple for the armour, carapace, shell, whatever it is. Once all that's dry, we'll give it a dry brush, with a pale sand, and then a white dry brush. We'll then go back over this with the original skin colour contrast paint just to tone it down a little bit. For the talons we're going to use a bright contrast green, I think it's scorpion green. The gun, again a contrast red, anyone will do. We'll use the same red on the eyes. And a nice dark colour for the hoofs. I've gone for a brown here. And I use the same process for all the other Tyranids. Once they're done, we can move on to the Space Marine. This one's already had undercoat blue. We'll give it a wash of a darker blue. Then we're going to use a clean brush and wipe away some of the excess wash. This should limit the amount of staining on the miniature. And then a nice dry brush with a lighter blue again. I think this is Thousand Suns blue, but any light blue would do. I ain't fussed. Then we can pick out a few more details, use the gold, tidy it up a bit, work on the gun, and we'll call that done. That's my little rhyme there for you. And the final thing is just to add some transfers. What a pain these are. So yeah, let's paint this base. We'll use some contrast and washes here, browns and greens. Not letting one paint dry before we mix in the other, blending them all in. Using my world famous dabbing technique. And then for the vines we're going to use the same contrast green that we used on the talons of the Tyranids. Taking the time here, there's no rush. For the trees, we'll start with brown and blend all this into green, using the same contrast paints we've already used on the vines. Never letting one paint dry before we use the next one. And then with the tree, we're going to get a little bit lighter on the branches the higher we go. Most things in nature tend to blend together, so bear that in mind when doing this. Quick contrast paint on the skulls, and once that's dry, we can give them a dry brush of white. Okay, the miniatures are ready, the base is ready, I'm ready. Let's have my first attempt at resin. I just bought some cheap stuff online, I'm sure it'll be fine. We'll mix all this together, add in a little bit of brown for the first layer, pour that all over and leave it to dry. I saw this online, so it must be true. Burn all the air bubbles out. Here I'm using a fire lighter, didn't singe too much hair. Then we can stick these miniatures in, and once dry, add more layers of resin. I think in total I had about 4 layers here. Doing a couple of mil each time, letting it dry overnight, and then adding another. And to finish it off, give the water a bit of texture. I'm using an acrylic water resin here, dabbing it all over, and again leaving it to dry. Don't go too mad with this, because if it goes on too thick, it does cloud up quite a bit, so small thin layers is the way to go. And once that's dry, we just got to add the last Space Marine and take a look at the final reveal. And that's the first Leviathan project done, just 64 miniatures to go. I'll see you in the next video.